the truth of the matter, and you said it so well, Dr. Vibe, there are countless Black, African / Caribbean students, international students who are here in our cities who are struggling.
It's hard to know because we don't have like the data to say what is the state of Black health before and after. And that's something that we've been advocating for, right? We need better race-based data that's done in a way that serves us, because race-based data has been collected on different groups in ways that actually cause harm, but we need it to be done with us in a way that serves us.
What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce. Wow, what do I produce? I had a brain cramp from it. The only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And being part of that team, reached out directly and indirectly to over 400,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers around the world. And you are watching Black Canada and listening to Black Canada Talking Live, broadcasting October 20th. I'm based here in the Greater Toronto area. Incredible weather in Toronto. I mean, it's like 70 degrees and like it's like just past the mid of October. We're supposed to be getting it for the next few days. Then the fall weather climbs in. But I was driving today on the highway, window down, and there's green and then leaves of orange, red, and brown, which means I have some raking to do in the near future, but that's okay. Before we bring up Cesar in the house, just do some housekeeping. Subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. We've passed 1,570 subscribers, so let's get 1,580 if you're up to it. Also, like the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Also, if you want to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I'm a part of, please feel free to email me, dr period, I always forget dr period, VIB at the dr, VIBESHOW.com. And also you can catch this amongst a number of edited versions of conversations, epic conversations that I host on IndieSoup.media.tv. And people are going, what's IndieSoup.media.tv? Well, it is a content creator's paradise, especially independent content creators' paradise. Over 40 content creators, and it is run by our good friend Dr. Tachi out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I'd say 2 or 3 of the conversations I hold on a regular basis, edited versions, are on that platform. So check it out at IndieSoup.media.tv. And let's bring up our friend, as always, Cesar. What is going on, Cesar?
Hi, Dr. Vibe. Hi, brothers and sisters and allies. Thank you for having me, as always. No, great to be here. I had a daddy-daughter date, as my wife would call it.
Okay.
Yeah, we went to, I took her to come watch football, as I try to do once a month at least. Unfortunately, Chelsea lost to Liverpool. And in England, my team is Chelsea. In Italy, it's Juventus. But my number one team is Real Madrid, Los Blancos.
Well, I got it.
There you
and
go.
again, I don't watch a lot of, I don't get a chance to watch, I don't make the time to watch a lot of football, but even though it's in North America, Mr. Messi has been on some sort of tirade this week, scoring 3 goals in 2 games back to back.
Well, you know what? Thanks for bringing it up, because I am absolutely team Ronaldo. And for those who don't know, Ronaldo's ancestry is actually African. I think his grandmother is from Capo Verde. I'm not saying that's why he's athletically gifted. I don't exactly enter those conversations, but absolutely, Ronaldo has recent African ancestry. However, that said, let us give credit where credit is due. Messi is absolutely, for me, top five. Not number one. For me, it's Pelé, 3 World Cups won. That's the argument right there. But absolutely top 5. And he was actually named the best footballer of all time by the Spanish newspaper, well, the Spanish, the football newspaper Marca from Spain. And that is not a small honor because Marca is, how can I put it? It's Marca in football is like the New York Times in journalism. You
Okay.
know, the opinion that they put does not go unnoticed. So they ranked Messi first of all time, Ronaldo second, and Pele third, or maybe Pele second and Ronaldo third. But no, respect to Messi, absolutely. I kind of wish he had stopped playing internationally in 2014 when they lost to in Brazil to Germany, and that way he wouldn't have surpassed Maradona and he wouldn't have won the World Cup, which ultimately winning the World Cup puts him above Ronaldo. Let us always stay honest, no matter that we support one side or the other. Yeah.
Good stuff. So, what's been going on other than daddy daughter dates in your world since we last had you on the show?
The usual, working, staying true to the cause. We are actually going to address some of the topics I've had to address professionally, and oh, I'm not gonna give his name, just also because I wasn't given permission to give his name. But uh, I have a pastor who wrote to me thanking me for the work that I do, the awareness that I bring, because this pastor, African pastor, has walked out of Christianity. He's no longer a pastor. He has walked out of Christianity. He really talked about how the usual, going from this guy is crazy, he must be the devil, he must be blah blah blah. But hey, start to look up things, asking questions, research, and he sent me a message saying thank you. He's like, I'm a former pastor. The work that you do, it does make a difference. So yeah, I get messages of support. Of course, I get a lot of hate messages, as you can imagine.
Well, okay,
But
so interesting when you say that. What percentage of male communication do you get positive versus not positive?
I don't really pay attention
Okay.
to that. But when I say I don't pay attention, is that I don't calculate it. It's just that last week or beginning of the week, I got a bunch of messages that all came like with time delay from Facebook on Messenger, and basically, yeah, I want to say probably either 50-50 or 60-40. But I also have a certain type of messages, sometimes in person. I remember I was in a small town, a very white town, and I had this black man come up to me with his, I think he had two daughters or two young children, anyways, in elementary age. And he told me that years ago, I can't remember, 2017, 2018, he saw me on a show in Montreal and he was very offended by the things I was saying about religion. But he was so offended, he went to look it up, and he was thankful. He was like, "I am raising my daughter in the honor and spirituality of our ancestors and teaching them Black history." He, I never met this man. I'm in a small white town that I don't know anyone in that town. I come there for professional reasons. I perform professionally, and then I leave.
Yeah.
But this man saw me in the parking lot. He came and Haitian. So we are in Ontario, small town. Well, it's a francophone small town in Ontario. And yeah, he said he saw me years ago on a panel in Montreal of a show, the KK show of Kevin Calixte. And yeah, he wanted to thank me. So yeah, for all our brothers and sisters, never give up. Continue the work of awakening our people. But fairness, even to our brothers and sisters who are Christians and Muslims, first and foremost, as long as you are doing good in your community around you, please don't stop. Because I refuse to reject my brothers and sisters due to foreign ideologies that enslaved, colonized, and still dominate our people. So, um, and it's a journey, it's a journey. Uh, nobody forced me to reject Christianity or Islam, and notably God, right? To reject belief in religion. It's a journey, and it's best to make that journey truly and honestly than to do it because it seems like something cool to do or to draw attention. I absolutely detest fake allies and fake converts to the cause. They're very dangerous and they do far more damage. Walk in your truth, and if you gain the if you gain the courage to stand up and say, "I no longer believe," then be aware. I am here to support you.
Well said. All right. And just want to make sure to when people are wanting to get in contact with Cesar, there is his email address, president at rootsandculturecanada.com. And there is his Facebook page, Cesar Remy Emery. And I put that in the comment section on most of the platforms that people are watching this live on the replay. So as always, let's get our first conversation piece up. And I didn't know Cesar was good. He always has great conversation topics. Let's start off with this one. This one being fertility rates in Canada are dropping. What are the short-term and long-term effects? Cesar, kick it off.
Well, it's a topic that many people don't are not conscious of. Let me break the ice right away. There is one group of people who are very conscious of it. It's easy to say politicians, but white supremacists. White supremacists pay a lot of attention to the fertility rate. Now, let's first start with Canada before going globally. Um, the Canadian fertility rate, aka viable number, the expected viable number of children per woman in Canada, has reached a new record low. I believe the number is 1.26 children per woman, and
Okay, just want to interrupt. In this report on CTV, it says 1.33, but so you're close.
this is from when? Because I read literally from this week or
Okay, well,
2 days ago.
this report's going from February 1st, 2024.
Yes, excellent. Because at the beginning of the year it was 1.3, and that the 1.26 has beat the 1.3 record low. That's why. Um, so it may seem contradictory because people may have heard that Canadian population has increased. Now we need to be very careful. Canadian population is increasing due to immigration. But as you also understand, increased immigration also tends to raise tensions in the community, notably in regards not just to integration of the newcomers, but also the acceptance of the changing racial demographics, which, of course, rises um, white supremacist feelings and sentiments in Canada, in the US, in France, in the UK, etc. Now, how do we explain it? Long story short, people will say the economic crisis, the housing crisis, COVID definitely had an impact because many families, many couples push to later the potential to have children. But further to that is really a matter of addressing the changing nature of society, notably in the Western world. I mean, even as I look at me and my wife, we come from big families where we are the eldest of six in my case, five for her. We only have one child. But we also only have one child because society has changed. You go back 30 years ago, women having a child past the age of 35 represented 10%. Now it's over 25%. At the same time, there is an increase in infertility rates for women as for men. And of course, we have to never forget. Um, I was talking about society changes, such as culture, in terms of people being able to sustain themselves more and requiring less to be in a relationship, which also increases the potential for having children. Now, all of this said, in Canada, Indigenous and Black birth rates are actually increasing. They're actually increasing. The white birth rate is not. This is common in Canada and all the Western countries. Canada actually reaching a group of nations that have the lowest birth rates, that are Japan and Italy. Japan, where it's so bad that you have more people dying than people being born. It's called denatality. And Japan does not want to rely on immigration, which is part of the reason why they increase the performances of robotics so much. You have Italy, the oldest nation in Europe. You have Spain, you have South Korea, etc. You also have a certain nation by the name of Israel. Israel, which is also part of the reason why its right-wing government is pushing for Israel to become a Jewish nation, aka an ethno-religious nation, and technically no longer a democracy, because they are fully aware of the high Palestinian birth rate. Just as for white supremacists, as I've said many times on this show, white supremacists are absolutely terrified of what statistics all over the world are predicting will happen between the years 2050 and 2100. One human being out of three will be African. I didn't say black. I didn't say including Caribbean, including Afro-Brazilians, aka the country with the most black people outside of Africa. And actually, there's more black people in Brazil than in the US. I said one human being out of three will be African. If you say black, we can include blacks in India. More black consciousness is growing in India, not only in terms of descendants of slavery, but even the Dravidians, indigenous Indians, whose skin is darker than me and you, Dr. Vibe. We can include black Aborigines. We can include black Pacific Islanders. So the aspect of fertility rates has always been, and when I say always been, in the logic of warfare, and I'm not talking here warfare in terms of just dropping bombs or killing people or sword fighting. I'm talking long-term ideological civilization notions of warfare. The womb of woman is a battleground. This is part of the reason why in the South, those Republicans, especially the Trumplicans, Trump Republicans, aka MAGA, white evangelicals, right-wing conservatives, this is why they are so much passing laws against abortion. They don't care that black women get an abortion. That's not what the problem is. Latinas can get aborted all the children that they want. They're trying, in the logic of so many of them, to save the white race, aka to prevent white women from aborting. And this is the case that we see, conservative governments, and this applies to Canada as well, have an interest in preventing the growth and popularity of abortion methods, because ultimately they are in a logic, in a survivalist logic regarding the white race against the hordes of non-whites from immigration, because to them, the notion of the revenge from history is ever present. And in a democratic system, it becomes a matter of votes, which is what you see with the Republicans notably claiming the Democrats, and notably Biden and Harris, have let in so many millions of immigrants in order to vote for them and to remain in power.
Good stuff. And since you've put it into a global context, I want to just share with you too. It's a recent survey about the countries with the highest birth rate in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at almost all of them are in Africa.
Well, basically, the countries with the highest birth rates are, if I remember the list of the top 10, 5 or 6 are Africans,
Yeah,
Congo, Nigeria, Ethiopia.
well, I'll give you
Uh,
here. It says this report from Statistica: Niger, Angola, Benin, Mali, Uganda, Congo, Chad. There's Somalia, Mozambique, South Sudan, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Cameroon, Burundi, Afghanistan, Zambia, Nigeria, Sudan, Tanzania, and Libya. So 80% of the countries on that top 20 list are from the African continent.
yeah. And that is absolutely scary because as we're talking about declining fertility rates in the Western world, there is something else that's happening. There's an increase in longevity, aka people live longer, but you have less of a workforce, so less of a, how to call it, domestic indigenous workforce in those so-called white countries. So this is why immigration becomes necessary. The issue is not really immigration per se. People have always migrated for good or for bad. As we can see the history of the Americas, between those who came here as colonizers and those who were brought here by force in terms of slavery, and those who were also brought in by force as indentured servants slash workers, and those who came here because of geopolitics of neocolonization. You see what I mean? No African really hope to leave the country to go live up north with half the year being in winter. But neocolonization happened. Same for the person in Jamaica. Neocolonization happened. So these dynamics, in 2024, we have a US election, which rightfully many are saying this election is pivotal in terms of the future of America. But it's also pivotal when you look at many other elections in the world in terms of is the world, not just Western nations, but where is the world going to? When you look at notably what happens in, I'm kind of linking with our different topics here. When you look at notably what happens in terms of the strategy of the state of Israel in collective punishment of Palestinians in Gaza, there is an element that relates to the aspect of fertility rates and the survival of a group, basically making um, a place like Gaza uninhabitable, unlivable, so that you don't have to worry about that population growth. It's the same way in terms of how, when you look at here, Canada, the US, the fate that was befallen upon the indigenous people by the white colonizers was also linked to them being unable to sustain their numbers. Because if you have a growing population of dissatisfied, they can topple your regime. This is not some conspiracy theory for anyone. I am so not a conspiracy theorist. This is factually and historically documented. Even China is having a fertility rates issue. So China is no longer the most populous nation in the world. This is the first time this has happened in, let's put it this way. I know China has been the most populated nation in the world, and definitely for more than 2,000 years. Let's put it that way. Because I can think of the first Chinese dynasty, they were already the most populated nation in the world. They no longer are, but they have an increase in longevity. They're having problems, notably with workforce, etc., etc. It's big social issues linked to demographics beyond just a matter of fertility rates.
What are the impacts do you see short term and long term about this?
The impact, well, in terms of short term, how can I put it? We're having populist politicians who are basically hitting on immigration as if it is a solution to domestic issues. Let us not forget that right here in Canada, I mean, people love to look at the US, but right here in Canada, people blaming immigrants and the housing crisis for a lot of economic difficulties, which also links to the fertility rates. But as I said, immigration is not even the issue. The integration always the issue. At the same time, when we look at long-term effects, it's the racial demographics of our societies, but also the political representation. So let me give you an example, very blunt, straightforward example. And again, it connects to our next topic. If you look at right now, the Democratic Party in the US, the Jewish minority has a lot of weight, not just in terms of financial um, lobbying. And FYI, there's financial Jewish, but not just Jewish financial lobbying on both parties. Okay. But when you have an issue such as Israel and Palestine on the other side of the world, but you have the white Jewish population whose fertility rates is similar to other whites, anywhere from 1.2 to usually not even 2 children per woman. You have a declining population in contrast to the growing Muslim population. So what ends up happening? Well, in 2024, 2028, 2032, 2036, the Muslim vote will be bigger than the Jewish vote. You are a member of the Democratic Party. This will affect your stance on the Israel-Palestine conflict because in order to stay in power, as we are seeing right now regarding why Michigan is such a swing state, the hundreds, I think it's up to 300,000 of Muslim population who can vote. All it takes is 1 to 2% to basically put a Democrat in the House or Senate, or to not put a Democrat in the House or Senate. When we look right here in Canada, what usually happens when you have a large Black population in a certain area? It can affect politics. So let me give you the contrast of two white men in power, rich white men in power in Canada. François Legault, Prime Minister of Quebec, versus Doug Ford, Prime Minister of Ontario. 4.5 years ago, when a certain George Floyd was murdered, assassinated, we should say. When George Floyd was assassinated, you suddenly had a conversation on systemic racism. While in Quebec, the Prime Minister Legault denied there is systematic racism. Systemic, sorry. It's not good to confound systemic and systematic. Systemic racism in Quebec. He could do so because his voting bloc, the people put in power, are overwhelmingly white and overwhelmingly from outside of Montreal, the most diverse city in Quebec. Meanwhile, for Doug Ford, at first, he denied the systemic racism in Ontario and I think in Canada. It took him very little time to backpedal and basically to change his tune to we must fight systemic racism because someone must have pointed out to him that in Toronto and the GTA, you not only have a large Black population, aka the largest concentration of Black population in Canada, but you also have a large Indian slash um, Punjabi population, a large Chinese population, large Eastern European population. It becomes a little bit difficult to want to be elected in politics when you live in a very multicultural area that requires multicultural voting and for you to go deny systemic racism. And when you look at the fact that these populations are having a higher fertility rate than whites, multiculturalism become a more present issue in terms of politics, decision making, and where our society is going. A perfect example to look at it is also when you look at England, London. Sadiq Khan has not been accidentally the mayor of London for the last few years, elected and re-elected. It's not just forget the Rishi Sunak who was there because of internal party politics. I'm not even talking about the African Pakistani Prime Minister of Scotland. I'm talking about the mayor of London, which had a nickname of Londonistan because of its large Muslim population. So this topic is absolutely scary to white supremacists, but we must not fool ourselves as Black people to look at it as, oh, well, the Black population in Africa is increasing, good for us. No, it absolutely means nothing if you don't have a consciousness and proper governance and plans to direct such large population. Example, what China did to come out of poverty since the mid 70s up to now in lifting hundreds of millions of people out of poverty by becoming technically the factory of the world. So the population increase by itself means nothing. You look at Africa, yeah, increasing birth rate and all that, but you see, if you still have, excuse my language, I'm just using the reference that a certain Donald Trump used here, shithole countries. If you have such mismanagement, all you end up having is having more youth who are going to go die in the Mediterranean Sea, hoping to reach Europe for a dream. Or you will have more young men joining Muslim terrorist organizations. Or you will have, the prevalence of entertainment in our communities as a way out because of mismanagement, because we're not giving credible, tangible hope for our youth potential. It's a very important conversation, just as we must talk as Pan Africanists, just as we must talk more about the environment and climate change. We must also talk more about fertility rates, birth rates, but also the integration of immigration and our youth, because all of these topics are related to hard and soft power for nations.
All right. So we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, Cesar is going to give us a little of insight on some of the work that he has been doing. And we always know he's doing work, but some interesting work he did over the past week involving two countries, two countries, I guess some people would say, or two different a hotbed, let's say a hotbed area of the world. So we'll be back in 30 seconds. Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala. Join Aisha K. Staggers and Laura Lala Key as they cut through the chaos and make some sense of the nonsense in American news and politics.
People are expecting Obama-level eloquence out of a man who's always talked like this.
Sharp insights, bold opinions, and a touch of humor. It's the show that keeps you informed and entertained.
There's no way that Trump is going to debate her.
Don't miss Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala. Tune in and stay ahead of the headlines. All right, catch it live Saturday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Aisha K. Staggers and Laura Lala Key trying to make sense of the nonsense that's going on in American news and politics. And as I said before we went on our break, Cesar is going to give us a little insight on an information session he gave about two interesting groups of individuals or countries. So go for it, Cesar.
Well, basically, as part of my work as regional director of EDI, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusivity issues in child welfare, I had to address the Israel-Palestine conflict, basically Middle Eastern conflicts, to two groups of public servants, senior leaders, board members, and the questions were varied, very diverse from the roots of the conflict, of course, but also the importance of Jerusalem in the conflict, and et cetera, and then, of course, giving explanations in terms of the different types of anti-Semitism, but also why I don't agree with the term anti-Semitism, just as I don't agree with Islamophobia as a term also, but as well, explaining what Zionism is and that it does have merit. Yes, it can be shocking to hear. It does have merit, but the Palestinian cause has merit, definitely, and explaining many elements, the asymmetrical warfare methods of Israel, but as well, where those, as many people ask, where those Hezbollah comes from, where those Hamas come from, and of course, beyond the targeted assassination, such as of Ismail Haniyeh of Hamas and Hassan Nasrallah of Hezbollah the day after. So I presented on Wednesday, and the day after, on Thursday, the world was informed that the Hamas leader who was responsible for the October 7th, 2023 attacks, terrorist attack on Israel, by the name of Yahya Sinwar, had been killed. So, an important conversation. As I explained, I'm not there pretending to know everything, not to be right. I take I take being asked to address this issue with much honor, but also much humility, notably because people, in the comfort of our home and offices, addressing this topic, there are people who are actually dying. And although I can rely on my studies, Jewish studies with Professor Anktil, Arab studies with Professor Ben Habib, and the experiences that I've had from offers that I've had internationally, and notably trips that I've had addressing this topic, I always remind people it is important to talk about it. There are people dying. It's an issue that is man-made and it can be man-solved. It links, the intersectionalities are plentiful. Colonization, yes. Racism, yes. Religion, absolutely. Politics, definitely, etc., etc. But I always remind people, while we keep talking about this topic, this conflict, we are not talking about other conflicts. And right now, there's people dying in Sudan, and are we really talking about them? It is estimated that it is, and I mean, it can be surprising when we look at the pictures of what Gaza looks like. As I said, the Jewish supremacist government of right-wing government of Benjamin Netanyahu fully intends to make Gaza uninhabitable. You can't live there. It's 80% destroyed, and estimates speak of 10 to 15 years, not to rebuild it, just to collect all the rubble. More rubble there than in Germany, if I'm correct, Germany or Dresden, a city of Germany, fully destroyed by the Allies. More, I will assume Dresden, not all of Germany, more rubble there than in Dresden, fully bombarded during World War II. So while we're talking about this conflict, and it is an important conflict to talk about, as I told many of them, as a Black person, as an African, and as a Pan-Africanist, why is it that we're not talking about Sudan? Why are we not talking about the fact that up to 1 million people risk dying of starvation as we speak right now? It is estimated that the number of people dead, killed so far, is likely. I mean, I didn't do the research, so Dr. Vibe and anyone listening, please look it up. From what I think I've read, it is estimated that up to 150,000 people may have already died. And yet we are not talking about this conflict. In the same way as, Congo, since 1997, roughly since the 90s, it is estimated that 10 million people have died in the neo-colonial conflict for us notably to have the technology such as coltan in our cell phones, the minerals that have to create the technology that we have in our cell phone. So in me speaking, of course, As I reminded them, there was a time when I was pro-Israeli. There was a time when I was pro-Palestinian. And as I became more and more pro-Black, I also became more and more pro-innocent lives, pro-human rights, and simply put, pro-truth. And as such, this conflict is overwhelmingly in the news, not just because Israel is a Western ally, but because you have white people dying, white Jews, white Muslims, white Jews from Europe, and white Muslims, white Arab Muslims. On both sides, you have black people there. You have black Jews, you have black Palestinians. When do we ever hear about them? When do we ever hear about them, considering that they were victims of systemic racism? Um, for those who think, oh, here we go, we're talking about systemic racism again because it's EDI. No, no. This Jewish brother killed by police, Solomon Teka, in Israel. Look up the fate of African refugees in Israel. Look up the scandal of the Depot Provera when the health ministry forced sterilization of Ethiopian Jewish women. Forced sterilization without them knowing. And this is just a few years ago. So, and of course, if we talk about Black Palestinians, well, first of all, racism is not even a topic addressed in the North Africa, Middle East area dominated by white/Arab Muslims. Someone like me addressing systemic racism in that part of the world is borderline almost as dead as fast as someone openly gay or trans. Let us dare to be honest. So these are elements that led me to take steps back. It's actually from a Palestinian, not even a Palestinian activist who gave me some pointers on the Black reality in Palestine. She is a white Palestinian. And she told me, but do you know the fate of Black Palestinians? This was in 2018. I did not know. And it's also from Zionists, actually. Zionists, not just Israeli or pro-Israeli, Zionist friends were basically highlighted to me the reality of being Black, that yes, there is racism also in Israel, but would you rather be Black in Israel or be Black in the Middle East? In Israel, you can criticize religion, you can be Black and proud, you can talk about slavery and colonization, but ultimately, Israel or Palestine, there are people dying, there are innocents dying. We must condemn the terrorist attack that have killed 1,200 Israeli, Jewish, and also international innocents. And we must as well condemn in the same sentence, in the same paragraph, with the same energy, we must condemn the over 40,000 people who have been killed in Gaza as part of collective punishment because of what Hamas did. And I can't remember if the number of dead in Lebanon has already reached 1,000, but there are hundreds of dead people in Lebanon. And as I said before, if you do have friends, colleagues, family members from that part of the world, whether they be Muslim, Arabs, or Jewish or white, please, say a word, give a hug. And I'm saying this because I was talking about Sudan. I was talking about Congo. We can add Haiti here. This is the treatment that we wish we would have as Black people. So yes, say a word, but remind them also of those other conflicts where people who look like us are being killed, but it doesn't make it to the news. Or if it makes it to the news, it's a very small segment. In this, I give my respect to one of my friends. We are not as close as we used to be, but at least she has evolved. Notably, she happily surprised me having looked up and inquiring herself regarding what happened in Congo. Just because she's Arab, and it was always Israel Palestine, but no, it's important that if we want to create a better humanity, absolutely, we must. How can I put it? L- Let me put it to you in perspectives. We hear about the students' protests in colleges. We hear about notably many Black people have lost their jobs because of this conflict, notably Professor Mark Lamont Hill. Uh, but I've never seen so many Jewish people becoming pro-Palestinians, despite what happened October 7th, 2023, because they understand only a two-state solution can bring peace. But that growth of consciousness must be translated notably to African and Black countries beyond saying apartheid in South Africa happened, beyond saying Nigeria, Boko Haram, and bring back our girls happened. People are dying right now in the four corners of the world, and a lot of people who are dying look like you and me, Dr. Vibe, but they're far from getting the same level of attention, the same level of sympathy, the same level of mobilization. And nobody accuses me of doing victimization here. It is also for us as Black people to bring a lot of that uh, activism, awareness, etc., etc. When I was at the United Nations for the first time, April of 2023, something that strongly disappointed me. We are at the United Nations Forum for People of African Descent, and yet people, because of slavery and colonization, aka Christianity and Islam upon Black people cared more and had more involvement regarding addressing Israel and Palestine. And it wasn't addressing Black Jews and Black Muslims, Black Palestinians, Israel and Palestine, than to talk about Sudan, than to talk about Haiti, than to talk about Congo. I am here at the United Nations in New York, International Forum for People of African Descent, and people cared more about Israel and Palestine because of religious affiliations, because of the feelings regarding colonization, and to address issues impacting people who look like them. This is a problem. And that's why me talking about Israel and Palestine, yes, absolutely, I will share, I will talk about it, but I must make it a duty to always remind people the other conflicts happening worldwide, not to be uh, conflicts killing people who look like me, and I don't get even half or a tenth of the coverage that Israel and Palestine, and notably Ukraine and Russia, did get. So, yeah.
All right. And I guess the reason why this happens is one of the things that we have, you in your mind, we have to do is we have to talk about it more because we can't rely on other sources to do it.
And notice the strategy that I had in mind. If we say, let's talk about Sudan and Congo, yeah, let's say Israel and Palestine. And whoop, let me let you know. And it works all the time because a lot of people, look, so many times when I talk about Israel Palestine, I've had people clearly tell me they had no clue about Sudan. They don't know what's happening in the Congo, Eastern Congo. They don't know. So and this is a strategy that has often been used by Pan-Africanists, to be quite honest, recognizing that we have a deficit of sympathy and attention to our causes due to our blackness, unless it's something that is so tragic over the top and that makes it worldwide. I mean, yes, George Floyd was tragic, but hey, as I remind people, George Floyd is the tree that hides the forest. I gave the name of another brother in Israel, Solomon Teka. I am willing to bet that nobody ever heard of his name. I mean, let me put it to you in perspective, if you don't mind. In the 2016, 2014, maybe, when I started to join Black Israeli pages, one of the things that surprised me is that addressing systemic racism was really minimal. So at the same time, I'm pointing the finger towards white, whether they be white European Christians or white Jews or white Arab Muslims, and sometimes white Aryan Indians. I have three fingers looking at us as Black people in terms of even ourselves. I mean, I live in Ottawa here, and Ottawa as Paris, the Congolese community is not exactly known for advocating for the fate of Congo. So it's easy to point the finger at white media, white people, and blah, blah, blah. But let's be honest, our own Black communities are not champion at addressing their own issues unless, like, yeah, George Floyd. But we can't just talk about George Floyd continuously. We can't always bring back the memory of Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela. We have to educate and uplift our own, kind of as I was telling you about that pastor, Black pastor, African pastor who thanked me, sent me a message. I don't know this person, sent me a message thanking me that he eventually left being a pastor to reconnect with African spirituality. Just as I've had that parent, that Haitian father in that white rural town, hey, I see a Black man saying hi to me. Of course, I'm going to say hi. I say hi to anyone who says hi to me. But I didn't expect him to tell me that. So we have to do our part. We have to do our part, because to connect with the previous topic, yeah, an increasing fertility rate in all these African countries, we don't need to have millions more Black people who are shipped and slaves to the system. We don't need to. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, we have Chinese and Korean pastors in Africa making money, mentally enslaving African minds. Show me these African pastors in China or Korea making money off Chinese and Koreans. Good luck.
They wouldn't let them in. They'd ship them out or they'd imprison them. 100%.
Welcome to reality.
100%. All right. We are going to take one more break. And when we come back from that break, we're going to be talking about, of course, the American election, about 2.5 weeks. It's tightening up. It's getting tense. But Kamala Harris is appealing to a specific group of individuals. So we'll be back in a short bit, and Cesar will give his take on Kamala Harris appealing to Black men.
Yo, what's going on, everyone? My name's David Archer, anti-racist psychotherapist from Montreal, Canada, and I wanted to take a moment to give a special shout out to Dr. Vibe and the Dr. Vibe Show. If you're looking for the best conversations, even if you're looking for someone who could help to support you and help you to improve your outlook, the way how you're thinking about things, and cares about the culture, look no further. Go and Google Dr. Vibe, the Dr. Vibe Show, and you're going to find the man of the hour. All right? So, yo, many blessings. Take care. Peace.
All right, we are back, and we're in Black Canada Talking, October 20th, and just a few weeks away, an American election is going to happen. And it is, if you read, a lot of people say that 45 is either caught up or is leading. But this past week, Kamala Harris reached out to an appeal to Black men, and would love to get Cesar's take on Kamala Harris reaching out to Black men.
Well, I mean, the Kamala Harris appeal to Black men in terms of having a plan for Black men that notably addresses the economy, it's great, but of course there's been anything she will do will be met with notably criticism. For anyone who watches CNN, I need to say this. Pay attention to what's his name again? The Republican conservative commentator, Scott Jennings. He is something else. That man, that man is like, he impresses me. he impresses me.
Very smooth. Very smooth.
Something else. It's like it's like, how can I put it? It's like, does he believe his own lies? Because it comes so smoothly, like you're saying, right? He deforms anything and everything, and this is not some type of character assassination. It's just, I'm not the only one who has noticed this, but of course, if you basically pay to defend the GLOAT, the greatest liar of all time, aka Orange Man, aka 45, aka Donald Trump, wow, you you need to be smooth, but you also become a liar yourself. But to really focus on Kamala Harris, it's more in terms of the comments of Barack Obama towards black men, number one, and the reception that many black men have had towards his comments. So, first of all, let's not be hypocritical. I have said similar to what Obama is saying that from what I'm seeing online, I'm saying clearly online, many black men have an issue with the potential of a black woman being the boss, aka having the number one job. A mix of notably misogynoir, but also failure from many of these brothers. But we have to be careful. This is online where you have such strong black gender divide. But black men were actually correct in pushing back on the message of Obama that basically they would be crazy to not vote for Kamala Harris because on the other side you have Trump. Again, let's not be hypocritical. Obama is right, but I think he delivered his message in a poor way. Absolutely, Trump has no interest for the black community. Absolutely, Trump has a long historical and documented record of racism from uh, renting to black families to the exonerated five, but as well birtherism towards Obama, and lately how he goes out of his way to not just mispronounce but insult Kamala Harris, as he clearly has shown that he has a problem with intelligent, educated black women. For him to be defeated by a woman, so men like Trump cannot stomach being defeated by a woman. To be defeated by a black woman is unimaginable to him. And yes, some of our brothers basically don't accept that Kamala Harris may be black. But allow me to be honest here, because some have been repeating uh, what Janet Jackson has said. And I've read about Janet Jackson may have had negative feelings towards Kamala Harris because Kamala Harris seemed to side against her brother, Michael Jackson, when he was being tried regarding pedophilia. And well, the truth of the matter, first of all, I saw that clip. Kamala Harris was giving her opinion as a prosecutor. A lot of black people tend to forget that the point of a prosecutor is to prosecute in regards to what we call here in Canada, the crown, in the US, the state. But at the same time, many brothers in the States, aka African Americans, don't find Kamala Harris to be legitimate because she is not a descendant of American slavery. You know, the movement called ADOS, American Descendant of Slavery, just as FBA, Foundational Black Americans. Kamala Harris' father is Jamaican, just as Obama's father is Kenyan, black, but not black enough in terms of America, which is utter bullshit because if we are to be honest, white supremacy does not care about your level of blackness or where your blackness comes from, basically where the slave ship stopped at. This is why racist white cop, aka police brutality, has claimed the lives of African Americans just as of African migrants, just as of black people worldwide, from Canada to Brazil. And I gave an example with a name, Solomon Teka in Israel. This is what racism in police is. So, among many reasons, we must recognize that Black people are the second, if I'm not mistaken, the second largest voting bloc for the Democratic Party, right after Black women. But we must also recognize that Donald Trump plays on the division, but also stereotypes to attract Black male voters to his side. He plays on the hate and fear and discontentment that a growing number of Black men, when I say growing, Trump might get 15% of Black male votes, which would be, they're hoping to reach 20%. It's looking more likely to be 15, maybe 16, maybe 13. But it's estimated that it will be the highest percentage of Black male votes for a Republican since Richard Nixon, aka about 50 years. So if I look at it properly, Kamala Harris is absolutely correct to appeal. Now, some will say, why now? It's too late. Well, wait a minute, my brothers. Kamala Harris has only been in campaign for, when we reach November, truly for 3 months. That Joe Biden lost to Donald Trump, and let's be fair, Biden had been criticized strongly regarding his age and cognitive abilities. But look at Trump ever since. It only seems to get worse and worse to the point where he's running away from an actual interview, such as on 60 Minutes, notably where he will be fact checked. So cognitive abilities are not on the side of Trump. With respect to his age, the man is 78 years old. It is normal. But then why are people literally cheering for him? I mean, it is becoming more and more clear that Trump might be suffering of dementia. Are you going to let that person drive your car with your children sitting in the back? I wouldn't. Are you going to let that person run your country? You have to be wildly optimistic or wildly hateful of the potential of having a Black woman president to go to that left. So even when we speak about the economy, absolutely Black people have and are facing challenges that meet an intersectionality of. But at the same time, I mean, when she made the appeal, notably in regards to marijuana, I found that interesting in kind of as playing in the cliches. It's more than time to release people in jail for marijuana possession instead of necessarily thinking of making it easier to have marijuana accessible. It's kind of a populist measure, as our premier here in Ontario, Doug Ford, putting alcohol available in corner stores. I mean, there's a housing, there's the, you know, the cost of life. All that money could go there. You see what I mean? So I think it's a good thing. It's an important thing that she's making this appeal. But it's even more important if she's going to be brave enough to address the fact that the system has been. I'm sorry, Dr. Va, I've just noticed that I've been cutting on and off, but I hope
You're
I'm
okay. Once while you cut, but you're okay, Niall.
okay. Thank you. I hope she would have the courage once elected, because yes, I still think she can win, to address some of the issues in the Black community in terms of the Black gender divide. It's the system that has made it that Black women are more educated, and Black women, in terms of income, generally speaking, unless I'm wrong, someone check me on this, because I know Black women, generally speaking, are more educated than Black men, but less than 10% of Black men make 100,000. Less than 20% have a bachelor degree. But I'm thinking that even in terms of income, Black women might be making more. But when I say more, we have to be careful because the Black community is the one that has the highest rate of single mothers. So single mother as a status, of course, is a negative impact upon income. But to be able to address that is capital if the Democratic Party don't want to keep losing the vote of Black men in elections to come. And let us also not forget, I had another point that I wanted to make here. Let us not forget that it is not so much for Kamala Harris to make that appeal to Black men. As I was saying earlier in our first segment regarding fertility rates, up to, you know, ultimately, it is a matter of the community lifting itself in terms of not only, you know, lifting our own standards. I'm going to sound like Bill Cosby here. I'm not trying to say, I'm not trying to say pull up your pants, therefore you won't be a victim of racism. No. Respectability politics don't work. Speaking good English won't prevent a racist cop to shoot you. That's not what I'm saying here. But for every Tyrone who is in jail for drug dealing, and every Shaniqua was a single mother of different kids by different fathers, there's a Black man, a Black woman, and often it might be the brother or cousin or a friend of theirs who has made different choices and is living a different reality. Because even when we look in terms of the Black community right now, we may be linked effectively by the color of our skin and the common background in terms of social issues and inequities in relation to power. But more and more, there is a divide happening in the Black community in terms of not just the politics, aka look at Black MAGA, the ridiculous, but we're also having notably Black people who are becoming further entrenched in left-wing politics. But further, we also have socio-economic divergences in the Black community where we may be Black, but this Black person making $75,000 a year really is looking at distancing themselves, not even associating themselves from this other Black person who might be on government assistance, whether they be a single mother or they be a Black person who is unemployed. So in a very subtle way, despite our growing number, so many celebrities that we have, despite raising the fist and saying Black Lives Matter, white supremacy is dividing Black people. I didn't even talk here about interracial relationships. I didn't talk about passport bros or Black women who are swirling, basically two groups of people assuring you that white women are better or white men are better. No. I'm just talking about the collective Blackness where another example of divide that I alluded to earlier is Blacks who are becoming more and more Christian or Muslim, aka fundamentalist, and versus Black people who are going back to the African spirituality, discovering African history, showing and sharing that pride. We have to be mindful. Like I was saying earlier, I will not reject my brother and sister because they are Christian and Muslim. I might reject you if you are a Black MAGA and you're really hardcore. I will absolutely be honest about that. But I will reject you fully knowing that the white MAGA will reject you sooner or later and you will come back knocking at the door of the Black house to be accepted back. And we've seen many of this. We've seen Blacks who were part of January 6th realize the racism within. I'm from France. Those who speak French, Tanguy David. This is a young man, I think 18 or 20 years old. He was so right-wing, it seemed like a caricature. But then what did we learn? He had been adopted by a white couple, but becoming famous made him a target of racism by whites. It kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So Yeah, no. To just go back to Kamala Harris, yes, Barack Obama in his comments, he was correct. When you're black, voting for Trump is as if me as a Pan Africanist, I'm telling a black brother or sister to vote for the KKK. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter to deliver the message without making people feel belittled, without coming off as that, you know, Uncle Obama or Grandpa Obama looking down. I mean, Obama is more popular than Harris, but at the same time, we cannot deny that Harris, just as Obama, notably because they are mixed, but also because, as much as they can say that they rose from middle class, they haven't had a reality that is similar to the average black people. Whether it's Obama with his white grandparents and the opportunities that he's had, or Kamala Harris, not to be as a prosecutor, becoming a senator, etc., etc. The realities, you see, and I'm careful here. We must promote Black excellence. I am Black excellence. Dr. Vibe, you are Black excellence. I absolutely abhor and reject the fact that too many Black people celebrate mediocrity. They celebrate what I call the loser syndrome. If it's not in the cliche of entertainment or crime, far too many people have a hard time celebrating success that doesn't fit the cliche standards of blackness. I've experienced this my whole life in competition, whether it be in martial arts or in academia, more often than not being the only black person. It's foreign to our blackness. We must celebrate black excellence. We must uplift our standards outside of entertainment, outside of consumerism, outside of celebrating white religions of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and Hinduism. But in celebrating Black excellence, we must not forget that for so many of us, too many of us, are used to what I call the loser syndrome, aka if you lost, that's a Black experience. If you ghetto, that's a Black experience. If you've been, uh, you know, being a victim of racial profiling is Black. Becoming the Black police chief, are you a sellout? You see what I mean? So this is a mindset that we must address our own, aka we, and I've said this in every segment, and I say this all the time. Ultimately, to address the problems that face us, the solutions are within us. Because, I mean, I just realized that I'm wearing a shirt from Kemet, the spirituality of Kemet, ancient pharaonic Black Egypt. But there was a saying that was found from over 2,500 years ago. The kingdom of God is within you. God, the Son, S-U-N. The solutions to our problems are within us. As I said, Tyrone as Shaniqua may be cliche drug dealer in jail, cliche single mother with different baby daddies, etc. But they have relatives and friends who make different choices and thus have different outcomes. It is possible for each and every one of us, and collectively as a community, we must hold ourselves accountable and we must uplift one another. It's not about Kamala Harris. It's not about Barack Obama. It's not about whoever community leader we can look up or down or just talk about ancient Black heroes. It's upon each and every one of us in our Black skin, in our Black mind, and in our Black souls.
I'm not going to add anything to that because I think that is a beautiful way to end this epic conversation today. Cesar, I want to say thank you as always for taking the time to share with us. And if you want to get a hold of him, President at Roots and Culture Canada, Facebook, Cesar Remy Emery on Facebook. What's up? What's coming up on your plate? You're always up doing things, doing more teaching?
Yes, I'm. Today's Sunday, right? So I'm traveling tomorrow morning.
Oh my gosh.
Um, yes, yes, I'm leaving my family for a few days. You know, business. Work, travel, and next week I'm training some public servants in person and online regarding equity issues. And of course, we are getting closer and closer to November 5th. So,
Yes. So people are watching this. This is the place to be on November 5th. Live watch
indeed,
party. It's going to be the
i-
place.
indeed. So, yeah. And of course, I'm keeping an eye on the Israel Palestine, and we should say Israel, Palestine, and Lebanon with a risk of being regional. Just as an FYI to our Black people, so
Yep.
some people will laugh here. I am not one to say this is going to lead to World War III. As I said, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Anything can happen. But one thing that I know, a regional conflict will have an impact on us here beyond just the price of gas or etc. etc. Ultimately, as I said, regional conflict in the Middle East, but when we are being looked at, we are associated to Africa, and Africa, the fate of Africa, as our hero, Malcolm X said, as long as the Black man is not respected, Africa will not be respected. And as such, as long as Africa is not respected, the Black man, in brackets, Black woman, Black child, Black senior, Black family,
Family. Yep.
Black community, as long as Africa is not respected, the Black person will not be respected. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much. Don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace and travel safe. Take care, my brother. Be well. Keep the faith. All right. Another epic conversation. Cesar hit it out of the park as usual. Out of bounds as usual. So as always, please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Also, like the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Tell people about it. Tell people about it. And if they're up to it, let them subscribe. Also, to advertise your business, product, or service on our platform, please feel free to email me, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. Excuse me. And then finally, you can watch replays of this conversation, Black Canada Talking, on the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and on my website, the drvibeshow.com, which leads to how you can get in touch with me. I gave you the website information, also YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, the Dr. Vibe Show, Instagram at the drvibeshow.com, X/Twitter at drvibeshow, and then finally email address dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. So as always, this is how we finish off. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions. Then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher and wider. Love, faith, and respect. And as always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and remember to give yourselves grace. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith and walk good.